Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd. I'm a huge fan of cars used in old television series, and I'm also an independent vehicle consultant. I find cars for people. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be looking at a number of old television series from the late 50s right way through to the late 1990s, and I'm going to be telling you about some of the cars used in them. So join me on this journey as we look at some stills, maybe play a brief bit of video footage, and I tell you all about the cars used in old British TV series. So as you've just seen, the first series we're looking at is Department S. Today's the 27th of March. I've got my list here of notes, and first of all I need to tell you a bit about Department S. This is one of those quintessential ITC series, ITC and corporate television company owned by the wonderful Lloyd, in existence from around 1955 to about 1981, although its legacy is far greater than that. They made TV series like The Saint, Persuaders, The Champions, Randall Hawkett Deceased, Jason King, Gideon's Way. The list goes on. Department S is one of the latest series ITC made. This is latter half of the 60s now. It was filmed between April 1969 and June 1970, and no, sorry, that's wrong. Department S was actually filmed between April 68 and June 1969, and was broadcast between 69 and 70. That was obviously in the ATV Midlands region, which is the same company as ITC. ATV were the same company. They at the time that Department S was made, had just come out of a contract to broadcast in the London at the weekend. Let me get this right. It's a little bit confusing. ATV were the London broadcaster for the weekend. That's right, because rediffusion were in during the week, and at the Midlands they were there at the weekend. It's very, very, very confusing. When we go and talk about, the Avengers, we'll talk about the other broadcaster in the Midlands, but ITV were part of ITC. It's very confusing. So the Midlands generally received stuff like Randall Hawkett Deceased, Department S first, and in 1968, about the time that Department S was being made, they went to the Midlands 7 days a week. So that's why you would have seen this first. I think that's sort of the Champions that was made before Department S. The people who were playing the parts of Department S were Sir Curtis Seretse, played by Dennis Alaba Peters, Jason King, played by Peter Wyngarde, and Stuart Sullivan, who was played by Joel Fabiani. We also had Rosemary Nichols as Annabelle Hurst, who is not a very well an actress these days. She's not, I would say, the strongest actress there's ever been. And that's one of the sort of issues with Department S, is that some of the casting decisions are quite unusual in that way, but the programme itself is quite strong. So the idea is that these four people work for a branch of Interpol based in Paris, which is called Department S, and they specialise in unsolved cases. Some of the plots involve things like an aircraft arriving 6 days after it's supposed to, and no one knows why it has done. There's a man who's had a plastic mask put over his face and has subsequently died. Strange. And a tanker, as in the Trojan tanker, arriving at a place out in the countryside with someone who's been shot in the back. And we don't know why. It's very much that kind of thing. It's a bit like the X-Files in that respect, but a lot earlier. It shared a lot of the same production crew as Randall Hawkett Deceased. It was produced by Monty Berman, as always. Script editor, I think, was Dennis Spooner. And the music was by Edwin Astley, very distinctive theme tune, you would have heard it already. And made at Elstree Studios. These are facts that you are going to hear an awful lot over the next few weeks, repeated. But without further ado, let's get into some of the cars that we use in Department S. These days, probably the most famous actor in Department S would be Peter Wyngarde as Jason King. Now, he got his own series in 1970, which was called Jason King. We'll speak about that in a future episode, but he always had a very distinctive car, and in Department S, the General Transport was an only 59 Bentley Continental S2. And you would have just seen a picture of that actually on the screen. This was a sports saloon by James Young. It had Geneva plates on it. Or was it Bern? It's one of the two. It's either Bern or Geneva. I always forget. I don't say the registration number because a real registration number, I don't think anybody actually knows that. There's a huge debate in the fan community as to whether or not Peter Wyngarde actually owned the car. He kind of said he didn't, and then someone else said he did. So it doesn't really matter, but that's in an awful lot of episodes. You see it also used in Randall Hawkett Deceased in a couple of episodes, but we'll talk about that when we talk about Randall Hawkett. But yes, it's a very appropriate car for someone like him. So next up, we have probably the most famous type of car used in both Randall Hawkett Deceased and Department S. Now, there was a pair of Vauxhalls registered in 1968, just before production of Department S started, which would have been April 1968. One was a Vauxhall Victor, one was a Vauxhall Ventura. Now, in Department S, driven by Stuart Sullivan, it was a Ventura. It's white with a black roof, and it's RXD997F. That's used in an awful lot of episodes. Why they didn't give an American character an American car, I don't really know. There's plenty of other American cars in Department S. But that's what they did, and you see that also in Randall Hawkett Deceased. And later on, we'll speak about the twin car to this, which was just a Victor rather than a Ventura. They're very similar, but the Ventura had the 3.3 litre engine, and the Victor, I think, was just a 2000. So yes, it's not the most distinctive car, and they tend to rust quite badly, the FD Victors and Venturas. But anyway, Vauxhall actually supplied both of those for the series that were filming back to back at the same time anyway. And I think the Ventura ended up in a scrapyard, as far as I know. It didn't last very long at all. Annabelle Hurst possibly had the two favourite cars of mine in Department S. One of them was a Lancia Fulvias coupe. It was a 1968 model, a UBY96F. You'll probably see that actually in the thumbnail for this video. It's a car that I'm very fond of indeed. She'd had another car as well, and we'll talk about that in a second. Why they stopped with the Lancia some way through production, I don't know. She switched to another car a little bit later on. But yes, the most famous car, as far as I'm concerned, that she had was a Lancia Fulvias. In upper episodes that were set abroad, although Department S was never filmed abroad, it was actually filmed entirely in Britain. and usually in the vicinity of Elstree Studios, although they did get a Dorset occasionally. You do sometimes see other cars being used for Stuart Sullivan. The most frequent one, when he wasn't using the Vauxhall, was a 1962 Fiat 2300S Coupe Gear. The one episode I remember that most on is called Who Plays with Dummy. It's a fantastic episode, actually, and that appears right at the start. He also, I think, drives the Vauxhall in that, but I remember the Fiat more than that. And yes, that's a very, very nice car indeed. The other car that Annabelle Hurst used was a 1967 Lotus Elan Plus 2, which is LPW 120E. It's very similar to the car that was used in The Avengers by Linda Thorson right at the beginning of her production block. It was just either called Series 6 or Series 7. We won't go into that now, but it's a red one. Funnily enough, other characters before her in the series actually used it, so I don't know what happened to the Lancia. Perhaps somebody wanted it back. You do see Lancia in Run the Hawkeye as well, and you see this car too. And it probably suits the character quite well, although I prefer the Lancia. That's just my personal opinion. We're now going to speed up to get through some of the other cars used in Department S. I've shown you 5 images of the different cars, and I'll just speak about them quickly. In the episode Soup of the Day, there's a 1969 Ford Capri 1600 GT XLR, a CVW 325G. That also appeared in the Run Hog Get Deceased episode, which is called Murder Ain't What It Used to Be. It's sort of gold with a black bonnet. In the episode of Trojan Tanker, there are a number of 1966 Sedan 34 tankers. In the episode The Man Who Got a New Face, there's 2 Citroens. One's a 1963 Citroen DS19, and the other's a 65 Citroen Ami 6 Brake, which appears in Les Fleurs du Mal as well. At the end of The Man Who Got a New Face, there's a very, very, very ridiculous crash scene where they didn't want to damage the DS19, so they just rotate the camera around. It's very, very stupid. But that's, the sort of budget that Monty Berman gave to Department S. It's very silly. And in the episode The Bones of Bar and Blame, there's a 1955 Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith TUE 27. That one is also used in The Champions. I'm just giving you a sort of sample of the cars used in Department S. There's a lot more than this, but these are the ones which really stand out to me and the ones that I like to talk about. I recommend you watch the series yourself if you really want to see all the cars in it, because there's a lot more than this. In The Man from X, that's a fantastic episode, actually, Man from X. There's a 1966 Ford Galaxy 500. It's actually a right-hand drive one, and that appears in the Run and Hawk this episode, The Spirit Moves You, as well. The famous Elstree White Jaguar makes an appearance in this episode. If you don't know what that is, I've actually got a video that talks about what the Elstree White Jaguar was, and we'll put that in the description below so you can see. That particular episode, Who Plays a Dummy, uses stock footage from 2 Baron episodes, A Time to Kill, and the 3rd episode of the Baron from which it was originally shot, called Something for a Rainy Day. You'll hear me speak a lot about the ITC White Jaguar anyway, because that's what you have to do when speaking about our ITC series. Next, in Les Fleurs du Mal and Soup of the Day, there's a 1963 Buick LeSabre convertible. And in A Man Who Got a New Face, the car that goes off a cliff in that episode is a Renault Dauphine, and we'll speak about the red Renault as well when we speak about the White Jaguar again, because they were both filmed at the same time. But they want you to believe that car is actually a 1959 Alfa Romeo Giulietta Spider, that could have get shoved off a cliff in the south of France, but that was actually filmed, I think, just north of Barnet. So what can you do? Let's draw the cars of Department S, or at least the ones that I'd like to talk about today, to a close by speaking about the Vauxhall Victor from Randall Deceased, that appears, driven by Sir Anthony Hopkins himself. So I'm not actually joking. He drives RXD 996F. Isn't that funny? They obviously run out of money, and so they had to reuse cars from Randall Hopkins in Department S, and that also happened the other way around too. In the Manly Elegant Room, Monty Berman's own car, yes, the ITC producer Monty Berman, his car appears in 1963 Alfa Romeo Giulia SS. It's KMG 27B, but that car's had a load of different number plates on it. It's easy, you see it in the Champions, you see it in the Baron, you see it in all kinds of things because he owned it himself. We'll speak probably more about that when we talk about the Baron or the Champions. In the episode 6 Days, Sakota Suretse is driven around in a Rolls-Royce Phantom 5, 6939 PE. In the episode The Ghost of Mary Burnham, which stars Lois Maxwell, yes, the Lois Maxwell, there's a TVR Vixen from 1969, a TVR Vixen S2, PPP 999G, which also appears in Randall Hawk Deceased. There are also two other cars used in The Man from X, which I'll finish off with. The red Mini that is driven by Annette Andre in Randall Hawk Deceased, although occasionally it's driven by Kenneth Cope if there's a flashback or whatever, it's the first episode. BAP 2045B. That appears in The Man from X. Presumably they ran out of budget or something. And in the same episode of The Man from X, Stuart Sullivan, rather than actually driving his own car at one stage, he drives a Chevrolet Coure, and that gets written off and I think blows up or something like that. They weren't the best handling cars in the world, and that proves it too. So yes, if you are going to drive a Chevrolet Corvair, just take care. So that was the cars of Department S. I did record this episode for my channel last year, but I didn't put the photographs of the cars in, so you actually might think this is the same video as before. It's not. It's an entirely different one, and I hope that you enjoyed it. We've got plenty more TV series to come up in the next few weeks, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more updates. Like this video, leave a comment below. Thank you ever so much indeed for watching.